Hi, welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. On this podcast, we're going to continue to look at pure competition and answer the three questions that every firm has to answer. And we said those three questions were, how much do we produce? Are we operating at profit or loss? And should we stay open or shut down? Actually, in the short run, let me just go back to that. This I did on a previous video. These were answering the three questions in the short run. How do I know it's the short run? I know it's the short run because there was an average total cost curve and an average variable cost curve, and in between there must be your fixed costs. And if there's fixed costs, then it's short run. And if it's short run, then you're asking the question. Question number 3 is, do we stay open or do we shut down? Now, we're going to look at the long run. In the long run, if we come look at these graphs in the long run, there's only an average total cost curve, no average variable. Actually, the average total cost curve is the average variable cost curve. They are the same thing. The key is that there's no fixed costs. So now when we answer question number 3, the question is not, should we stay open or shut down? The question is, should we stay open or exit? Should we stay open or exit? So keep in mind, short run or shut down is a short run decision to temporarily stop production. The company's still going to stay in business. But exit, that means that we are leaving the market, we are closing our doors, never to produce again. That's a long run decision. That's an exit decision. And so our question number 3 is going to be, do we stay open or exit? Okay, so let's roll through these. You'll like these more for those of you who did the previous video in the short run. These were tough graphs. You're going to like this one a little better. It's a little bit easier when you do long run analysis. So if you haven't written these graphs down before, then I recommend that you spend some time drawing these graphs and answering the 3 questions. That's a big deal. You've got to be able to do it in microeconomics. So here we go. Let's go graph number 1. And I'm going to draw my demand curve up here above my average total cost curve. And this is going to be demand, which is equal to marginal revenue, which is equal to average revenue, which is equal to the price. And now we're going to answer 3 questions. Okay, how much do we produce? Question number 1, how much do we produce? Right here, we produce with the marginal revenue. Sorry, I just made a mistake. That's where marginal revenue equals average total cost. That's not where we produce. Okay, we produce where the marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That's where we produce and we get our tunnel vision. Okay, that's where we produce and get our tunnel vision. So I'm going to produce here a Q1 where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. I'm going to produce where the marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Question number 2, are we operating at a profit or a loss? Well, we're operating in an economic profit. How do I know that? Because I come up and I mark my average revenue, which is right here. There's my average revenue off the average revenue curve. Come up and mark the average total cost. Come across. Here's going to be my average total cost. And by the way, remember, the average total cost is also the average variable cost. It's both of those things at the same time because the average total is the average variable because there's no fixed costs in between. There are 0 fixed costs. So question number 2, I am operating at an economic profit. This firm is operating an economic profit. How do I know? Because the average revenue is greater than the average total cost. And then finally, should I stay open or should I exit the market? Well, obviously, we're going to stay open because we're making an economic profit. We're beating our next best opportunity. And then the technical answer to that, similar to the previous video where I did the short run graphs, the answer is that we stay open. And technically, we stay open because the average revenue is greater than the average variable cost. The average revenue is greater than the average variable cost, which is also the average total cost. Remember, they're equal to each other. Okay? So if the average revenue is greater than the average total cost, it must also be greater than the average variable cost. That would have to be true. All right, second graph. We're going to keep rolling through these. Second graph. Right here's my demand curve. I'm not going to have my demand curve below the average total cost. The demand curve is what? The demand curve is the marginal revenue, it's the average revenue, it's the price, it's all 4 of those at the same time. All right, answer the 3 questions. Where do we produce? We produce where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. Marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. So we're going to produce right here a Q1, marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Question number 2, profit or loss. Well, let's go label. So if we produce here, we come up to our average revenue, come across. There's going to be my average revenue at that level of production. Come up to the average total cost. There's where the average total costs are going to be. And that's going to be both the average total cost and the average variable cost. They're both the same thing, remember? And so this firm, we can say clearly is operating at an economic loss. That's an economic loss. How do I know it's an economic loss? I know it's an economic loss because the average revenue is below the average total cost. The average revenue, the money coming into the company, is less than the average total cost, the amount of money, the cost of doing business. So the average revenue is less than the average total cost. Should we stay open or should we exit? We're not saying shut down now, we're saying exit. So the answer to that is that indeed we are going to exit the market because we are not beating our next best opportunity. So why would we keep doing this? So we're going to exit. And then the technical reason is we're going to exit because average revenue is less than average variable cost. And of course it is, because average total cost and average variable costs are the same thing. They're equal to each other in this case because there's no fixed cost. So if the average revenue is less than the average total cost, it must also be less than the average variable cost. So this firm would exit the industry and go do something else. Third graph, something weird is going to happen because, in the first graph, the demand curve was above the average total cost. The second graph, the demand curve was below the average total cost. On this third one, the demand curve is going to be exactly equal to. So let me see if I can do a good job drawing that. I'm going to fix that up a little bit. Let me try it this way. I want that demand curve to be exactly equal to the average total cost. So that's pretty good. The demand curve is exactly equal to the average total cost. So we're going to say this is demand, it is marginal revenue, it is average revenue, and it is price all at the same time. And watch what happens on this one. So we can have the demand curve be above average total cost, below average total cost, or exactly equal to the average total cost. And this is going to be a really, really big deal here. So where are we going to produce? We're going to produce right here where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue. So we're going to produce right here where at Q1, it's always Q1, where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. Question number 2, are we operating in economic profit or loss? Well, we get our tunnel vision and we come up here, get our tunnel vision, come across and label. This is our average revenue. And then come up and label the average total cost. Oh, but look at that. The average revenue is exactly equal to the average total cost. So this is also going to be the average revenue. Let's write it right like this. The average revenue is going to equal the average total cost, and it's also therefore going to equal the average variable cost because average variable and average total are the same thing if there's no fixed costs. And so question number 2, I'm going to say we are, how am I going to say this? My economic profits are equal to 0. Because why? Because the average revenue is exactly equal to the average total cost. Now, keep in mind, if my economic profits are 0, that means that I'm still making an accounting profit, right? I'm making an accounting profit. I'm just not beating my next best opportunity. I'm doing just as well as my next best opportunity, and therefore I'm producing at an economic profit of 0, okay? So it doesn't mean that I'm not making money. I'm making money. I'm just not doing better than my next best opportunity. The economic profit is 0. And then finally, last question, should I stay open or should I exit? Well, I mean, I guess you could argue either one of these, but I'm going to argue this. I'm going to argue in general we're going to stay open. And why? Well, I guess I'm going to say it this way. I'm going to stay open because the average revenue is equal to the average variable cost. And so what that means is I guess I could exit the industry and I can make just as much money producing something else, but it's kind of like, why bother, right? I'm already making some amount of money. I'm already doing as well as my next best opportunity. So, why not just keep doing it? Why bother going through the process of switching. So I think I'll probably just stay open. Average revenue is equal to the average variable cost. All right, so let's write down our general rules that we got from this, our general rules that we can conclude. General rule number 1 is that the firm will produce in the long run. Remember, this is long run analysis. The firm will produce at Q1 where the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost. Number 2, the firm is operating at a profit if the average revenue is greater than the average total cost. The firm is operating at a loss if the average revenue is less than the average total cost. So that would be true. And then question number 3 is, and this is where things are going to be slightly different than in the short run. Question number 3, we're going to stay open. The firm's going to stay open if what? If the average revenue, I'm going to say it this way, is greater than or equal to the, I'm sorry, no, I do want to say that way. Is greater than or equal to the average variable cost. Okay, let me say that again, just because I was kind of getting a little tongue-tied on that. The company will stay open if what? If the average revenue is greater than, that was here, or equal to, that was here, the average variable cost. Then they will stay open and continue to produce. They will exit if what? They will exit if the average revenue is less than the average variable cost. If that's the case, then they're going to exit the industry. Now, technically speaking, the average variable cost is the same thing as the average total cost, right? In the long run, they are the same thing. So we could say stay open if average revenue is greater than or equal to average total cost, exit if average revenue is less than the average total cost. That'd be the same thing. I want to say variable cost so that I'm highlighting the importance of that concept, but just remember average total and average variable are the same thing. All right, that's a lot of stuff. Tough couple videos here. So this has been Mr. Hagan on another podcast. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next podcast.